Yes, there's a gentleman up the front here. If you could state the question and who it's for, or whether it's for the whole panel.
It's a fairly broad question, but Jerry, I suppose, more directly. We've heard about going on travel and having the benefits of a garden. If you have an extensive garden, how do you look after it when you're cruising the Rhine for 6 weeks?
What a great question.
Funny that you should... is this on? Now it's on. It's funny that you should say that. No? It did come on. We got in there? Yes. In the last year, I've had 4 trips overseas. 2 were on business and 2 were guiding holidays when I was taking gardeners with me overseas. And I prepare my garden for when I'm going away. And the rule of thumb is it takes about a week to prepare your garden for a week's absence. And in that absence, things that need regular daily watering, I wind them down. So I'm left with perennials and shrubs and trees that can be watered occasionally. My whole garden is hand watered, and so I train up either a neighbour or a friend, or if I really have to, I'll come up with hard cash and get up a local gardener to come and do it for me. And then when you get back, it generally takes about a week for every week's absence to put it back to the standard that I keep my garden in. And when I say this, I'm talking about a food garden. Now, a food garden is really quite labour intensive. So if you're doing gardening for a lifestyle and it doesn't involve growing your own food, you can have a fairly low maintenance garden that will not miss you at all. My front garden is the classic example, and I was talking about how I prepared it for climate change and it gets 6 drinks and then things survive on their own. The front garden only gets 1 day's attention every 3 months. So you can think about your garden and match it to your interest, the amount of time you'll spend in the garden, and the amount of time you want to spend away. It's quite a simple formula to work out.
Fabulous, thank you, Jerry. We have some more questions. The gentleman over here.
Yeah, this is directed to Timothy, I think. Timothy, isn't it? Yeah. Yes. The other night I saw a program on TV. You know how we're going ergonomically, or whatever you call it, to stand-up desks?
Yep.
And it was developing a lot of varicose vein programs and probably deep vein thrombosis or even. Yeah. So you might want to comment on that.
So generally, you guys got me? So generally what's happening there is the massive transition for people from a sitting environment to a standing environment. Like, even for myself, I do a lot of exercise, standing, sitting, and even standing for a half an hour a day can make me very fidgety, make my legs a bit sore, my knees sore. When I come to something like this, I might stand up the back for a while. So the transition for a lot of those people might be too quick, especially if they're carrying a lot of weight, especially if they've got cardiovascular issues and blood pressure issues. So the translation for them is they might need to do some of those deep vein thrombosis type activities that we see all on planes now, to try to marry up their sedentary behaviours previously to the change in their life that they're having to try to transition to that standing environment. It is quite interesting. I think most of the good ergonomic desks allow you to sit and stand. And some of the people who are entering into this pathway, it is quite unusual because what you'll get is sitting, standing meetings. So you turn up for a meeting, you stand up, you sit down. You stand up, you sit down. You do that at your own pace, and that allows that blood to be pumped around a lot better than what that just constant standing, especially for somebody, as I said, who's had previously sedentary behaviours, is transitioning to maybe too quickly. And I think we take a lot of this for granted, in that when we want to start exercising, if we do get into exercise or trying to change our physical activity patterns, that we want instantaneous change. But for a lot of us, we've gotten to where we are with 60, 70, 80 years of either bad or poor habits, which have led to our muscular imbalances, front, back, upper body, lower body. Those things cannot be turned around overnight. They need to be given time. And that's why I encourage you, enter into any new activity which has been previously foreign. Take your time with it. You know, make sure that you're doing it at a pace that you're capable at, slowly but surely progressing it as your capacity gets better.
Great, thank you. Tim, can I just double check that people can hear at the back? They can, okay, great, thank you. Question over here, thank you, Anthony.
Hi, I just have a question for Jerry about when your next open day is, because that sounds really awesome.
You were so close. It was Mother's Day weekend. I always do it on Mother's Day weekend simply because the garden will have all the tropical stuff of summer still looking relatively fresh, and you've got the promise of all the cool season crops just starting to germinate. So Mother's Day weekend 2017.
Write that down in your calendars. Question here, and then the lady over here next. Thank you, Anthony.
Hello, Tim. I'm blessed, really, with a 91-year-old husband who 9 months ago was diagnosed with dementia. Well, he was quite ill, and for about a month he was very ill. And I tried to get him to use a wheelie, then to start his walking program, and I have succeeded. And now I'm up to about 30 minutes a day. Should I push him any more?
This is a question for Brian Hurd, not me.
Can we have Brian back in the room, please?
My suggestion is definitely yes. Yeah, I think half an hour a day is great. It's definitely, if he's having a hard time with it. But
widening his steps? Should I
Yeah,
encourage
yeah,
him to take wider steps?
Variety.
He kind of shuffles.
Yeah, shuffles. Yeah, even like doing things like trying to use his heel to toe,
Yeah.
and you can do that standing, like so against the wall, up on your toes and back down, and that'll help because one of the reasons a lot of people trip over is that whole toe catch, and it happens a lot. You guys will see that. Too much time in aged care to not laugh at those sort of walking habits. Yeah. Yeah. I'm not being mean. I'm not being mean. I'm just preparing myself for it. So a variety of things like that will help. But I think if you've had a hard time getting him to here now, you've done very well. And what we're talking about now is we're actually talking about planting a bigger seed than the seed that you've already planted. So allowing that to grow by giving him incentives and goals. Do you want to spend more time with me? We could go out for lunch if you could do this. So trying to actually...
It's a hard job getting him in the car.
Yeah. But even things like that, for sitting and standing, as I said before, if you want to make him better at sitting and standing, you can get him sitting and standing. And, come on, darling.
Yes, that's it.
There you go. Up and down, up and down. See, you're recoupling as well.
So romantic.
So pushing him but not pushing him too hard is probably the right way to go.
Yes.
So
I'm so pleased to get him up to 30 minutes.
yes, no, you should be, yeah. Because it's hard. Like I talk to a lot of people about the whole stages of change ideas. So, I've written an article recently about it took me 10 years to get my mother to actually take any note of what I was saying. I've been doing this for 20 years now. And my mother would look at me blankly like, what the hell are you talking about, sort of stuff. And it very much, she wasn't ready. And because she wasn't ready, she didn't even see the problem. It wasn't I'm getting old or I'm getting more disabled or my knees are sore or anything like that. She didn't see she had a problem. So addressing all these changes in stages is very important, and it cannot just be, I spend a lot of time thinking exercise is good for everybody, why aren't you all doing it? But it's not as simple as that. Actually giving you the right incentives, putting the right things in place to actually make you take those steps yourself and move towards participation is a better way to go for participation and adherence.
Thank you, Tim. There was a question, Anthony, this lady here on the third row was next.
Just for the gardeners, the more veggies I grow, the more the possums come. Is there any surefire way of persuading them to go somewhere else?
We're happy to share a little about Paw Cross.
The only way you're going to stop possums is by enclosing things so they can't eat them. And when I tell people, they come to my garden and they say, do you have possum problems? They never believe my answer. I've been in my place for, this is my 13th year, and there's been possums there right from the beginning. They sleep in the neighbours' trees, they walk over the roof of the house at night, down the sugar palm, onto the fence, along the fence, and they eat somebody else's garden. This is the only way. Exclusion. When I lived in Sydney, I had a dog, and he didn't attack them, but I thought the smell of a dog, the presence of a dog, acted as a significant deterrent, because when I went away and took my dog with me, the possums would come in and cause damage. So the presence of a dog is a deterrent, but we tried everything at Sydney Botanic Gardens, from electric fences, motion impact activated sprinklers, motion activated searchlights, we use razor wire, everything. And it's just exclusion. Exclusion, and then you'll be okay.
We actually have a lot of luck with our dog. Our dog she would never take a possum, but she loves to bark at them. So our 7-year-old dog is actually quite fit from trying. She's convinced she can jump up to the telephone wires. So when the possums, she's jumping and doing backflips every night, trying to deter these things from coming into our yards.
Thank you for that. There was a question, Anthony, there was a lady here before. Possums, there you go. Possums.
My question's for Jerry. Jerry, I've always had leaf curl with my citrus until about 2 months ago, and a whole swarm of wasps every day come in and they go round the citrus looking under the leaves. Would they be taking the little grubs, or what would they be doing?
They would be. I have a friend who used to work for the CSIRO, and he said that were it not for parasitic and parasitoid wasps, we would have a really bad problem with caterpillars in Australia. About 80% of all caterpillars that are ever born never make it to adulthood because of those parasitoids. And one of the things, I was referring to encouraging bees in my garden by having the right flowers, and I mentioned parsley and coriander as being two of the most powerful attractants for bees, but they also bring in parasitic wasps. And the thing that most gardeners don't understand is that they have very different lifestyles when they're young and when they're old. Adult wasps drink nectar, so flowers bring them into a garden. But if there's regular supplies of nectar for them, then the first thing they do once they've got a full belly is they get into the mood for love, and their babies eat live meat. And so they will actually lay an egg on the prey, so the caterpillar. They'll often paralyse them and then put them in a tube somewhere underneath mulch in a garden. So one of the great successes of gardening in my place has been having the right formula of flowers to bring in the right good guys to save me from even having to use organic sprays. And over the last 5 years, my focus has really been on using the right bait to get the right plants in, so I can actually sow a mixed planting. And I use a mixed planting as an example: basil with spider flower and Chinese spinach. The basil is the crop. The Chinese spinach is bait for the caterpillars that would otherwise feed on the basil. They prefer the Chinese spinach, so they all very willingly attack the Chinese spinach. And the spider flower provides the nectar for the wasps. Once the wasps have had a drink, then all their food is just sitting there waiting for them, nicely arranged on the Chinese spinach. They paralyse those. I don't have to do any spraying, and I get the best crops ever, just by mixed plantings like that. That's the work that I'm mainly focused on now. Thank you.
What a clever tip. What about that wonderful couscous salad that went around before? I don't know if people had a chance to sample it at all. Just wondering if people got any comments about nutrition and healthy lifestyles as well for Tamara. Hey, we go. There's a lady here.
Yes, I've been waiting to ask Tamara something. Can you do that salad with some other grain besides the couscous? 'Cause if you've got someone that doesn't like it.
Absolutely, absolutely. It's basically interchangeable with any other starch, so you could possibly grow some yams. I hear they're good, starch. Yeah. So you could cube those and you could steam them down so they're nice and soft, but quite small. You could interchange it with rice. Basically, any grain that you do enjoy. Yeah, quinoa is another one, and that's very popular these days, and that is actually a really, really good source of vegetable protein. So it's a complete protein, which is, from my understanding, is the only vegetarian option for a complete protein without supplementing from a meat source. So quinoa would be another really, really good option. Just make sure you rinse it really well before you cook it, because it can be quite bitter if you don't give it a really good rinse.
Great, thank you, Tamara. We've got time for maybe a couple more questions before we break for lunch. I don't know who was next, I'm sorry. Maybe this lady here?
Here, I'm here.
Okay. That gentleman, thank you.
Just a question to Jerry. What is your favourite fertiliser that you use more often than not?
I've narrowed the range down, and what I use, I've always got poultry manure, because poultry manure is the most complete fertiliser you will ever find. And when you go to a garden centre, it'll be complete citrus food, complete rose food, complete this, that and the other, and it's all complete marketing. Poultry manure is cheaper, and it has a wider range of nutrients than any of the others, so I've always got that. And that's for really hungry plants like roses, bananas and citrus. Then the multivitamins for plants, that's seaweed solution, which is generally very mild, but it will contain a whole range of different things which you won't find in commercial chemical fertilisers, and it has a positive influence on plants, protecting them against drought, against heat and against frost. So that has a very special place in my heart because it makes plants more robust. And then lastly, I always have trace elements, which are the very small micronutrients, and I apply that every year after summer, because if we do get heavy rains, then the trace elements have a profound influence on a plant's health. They only need in very small amounts, which is why they're called trace elements. But those are the three absolutely essential things that you need. And in my garden, I need one last thing, which is iron. And I have to apply iron chelates on a regular basis because my soil is really starved in iron. And I suffer from anemia. And so since I depend on my garden for the bulk of my food, I have to make sure that my crops are supplemented with iron, so I don't reinforce a personal problem with a lack of iron in my body. Okay, so those are the bare essentials in my garden.
Before we move on, how do you process your chicken manure? You don't just chuck it on.
Oh no! When I get poultry manure, it's already been processed and usually pelletized, so you apply it as a granular fertilizer. But if you do have access to the poultry manure and sort of sweepings from the run, that needs to be composted for about 12 weeks because it's a very hot compost and it contains so much nitrogen it can actually burn plants, burn the roots, burn the leaves. So you need to cool it down by composting it for 12 weeks, 3 months before it goes into the garden.
Great, thank you. And as I said, we're just about to break for lunch, but maybe time for one last question. This gentleman at the back.
Thank you. It's for the Dr. Tim Henwood. Just a simple question and a quick one, considering, we're a mixed ages of people here, particularly the 80 to 90s, and you hear the comment that you exercise too much. Now, would you like to make a comment on that? In general, I mean.
Okay, so in general, exercise too much to me means you decide you're going to exercise, you wake up the next day, you go to a gym training session, you go to sleep, you wake up the next day, you go ride a bike, you wake up the next day, you then go and have a swim, you wake up the day after that and you go back to the gym, and then you wake up the day after that, you can't move, you lay in a heat for about 4 weeks after and you never go back to exercise. So my advice in any level of exercise is you want to exercise at a moderate to greater intensity, for sure. That's where the benefits lie. And that's very subjective for you, for me, for everybody here. The level of intensity that you can achieve is very much determined by your previous experience with that activity and your level of fitness. So start out at your level that you're competent with. Don't overdo it, don't push yourself too hard. Have a couple of days break to see if you get any aches or pains besides muscle aches and pains. So delayed onset of muscle soreness, when I use a muscle that I haven't used for a while and I wake up in a couple of days and that muscle's sore, that's actually a good thing. If that pain's in the joint, if it's really close to my lower back, it's affecting my pelvis, it's in my hip, then that's not such a good pain. You need to really reassess what you've been doing. But importantly, as you then get better at that exercise, as you become more competent, you get an increased level of fitness and increased level of capacity, you need to then increase the intensity. Now, you're all different people here. Some of you will be able to progress through a variety of things quite rapidly. Others will take your time. But if I revisit my aged care example, when I was working down in South Australia last weekend, they've got their guys there who 6 weeks later who are doing kneeling from going from wheelchairs to kneeling on the ground to standing up with some level of support, walking without any support. And they're working at quite a high intensity against all the other regulations that we see put out by like the American College of Sports Medicine Australia, the Australian Physio Association's guidelines and stuff like that. So the point I'm making is there's no harm in exercising hard. Just make sure you're ready to exercise. Okay? How's that? Good. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Tim. And look, what a wonderful panel of presenters. Lots of valuable information there, and I do thank everyone for your questions. And of course, I'd like to thank all of them, Jerry, Tim, and Tamara. And as a very small token of our appreciation, again, we have a bottle of wine for them.